let's face it, most ex-athletes, when they do this kind of work, they generally don't like to criticize other athletes. They rarely say negative things. The one thing I really appreciate about Merril Hoge is he had a very successful 7-year career in the NFL. He's not afraid to say things and be honest and candid, as he did recently on Johnny Manziel. And Merril joins us now in studio. Thanks for taking the time.
How are you?
Good. And here's the thing with Johnny football, and you said there's a chance anyway, if he's drafted high, he could be a bust. I look at his numbers and now you have the benefit of playing in the NFL. I obviously did not. And also studying tape. I just watched Johnny football on TV. But what I saw on TV is a guy who's an improvisational wizard who, in 2 years in the SEC against the likes of Nick Saban and Bama, compiled about 10,000 yards in passing and rushing and scored, I think, over 90 touchdowns with his arm and legs. And I see a guy who, and I know a lot of the old-timers compare him to Fran Tarkenton. He's more athletic, playing against more athletic opponents than Tarkenton ever did. Why can't Manziel work today if Tarkenton worked back then?
Well, first of all, numbers are not a skill set. So you can't look at numbers and say that translates to the National Football League. Two things lie to you all the time, TV and highlights. I am not smart enough to create an evaluation of a player just by guessing. You have to be able to do a couple things. You had to have studied the National Football League for a long time. And that means every position and what is the skill set required to play in the NFL in all positions. You know, my 8-year career in the National Football League, I've some 30 years total of studying this league. I've learned how to look at a skill set, what is a skill set is required to play at any position in the National Football League. Then you have to go look at tape on that player and study their skill set. And what you start out doing, that's how I do it. It's just like a scale. You have a scale and you have a pro and a con. And you start studying tape and, the scale's going to teeter one way or the other. Now, he is one of those very few players I have studied as transitioning to the National Football League and understanding the expectation of him possibly being the first player taken overall. You take that into consideration as you're evaluating a guy. The con outweighs the pro like 90-10. You have to look at a skill set. You mentioned something very interesting, improvisation. Did you know that is the big negative when you transition to the National Football League? There is nobody in the National Football League, offensive coordinator, head coach, defensive coordinator, position coach, where you step in a huddle and go, hey, guys, listen, here's our offense. I'm going to scramble on 2. I'm going to improv on 3. I'm going to make a play on 4. That doesn't happen.
Well, actually, it sounds like Johnny Manziel would be better off in the NBA because the athlete I compare him to the most, and I saw clips of Allen Iverson playing quarterback in high school. He looks like Allen Iverson, the guy who in the open field can break your ankles with a crossover, and he's got that kind. I understand that's not your prototypical NFL quarterback, and that's not necessarily a skill set you need to succeed at that position. But I just think there are certain athletes who have that it factor who can do. I just think you can't put him in a box, and you have to let him be who he is. And if a coach does let him be who he is at the NFL level, I personally think he can succeed like Russell Wilson did, and maybe even like a Breeze did, even though Breeze plays it a different way.
Okay, now, first of all, it is not a skill set. When somebody goes, he has it, I don't know what that means, but it's not a skill set. When you say he has the ability to break somebody's ankle in the open field, he's dynamic when he runs. He is. He's very good. However, I'm going to give you a word that you almost have, that every team bases everything they do on, structure. That you have a structured offense and a way of executing. If you fail to jump out of that structure, and if you're one of those coaches that draft him and you think it's okay to let him play like he plays, I'm going to tell you where you're going to have a problem. First problem you're going to have, let's not worry about the defense he's facing, okay? We won't worry about them busting him in half. How about the 5 guys that are fighting their tail off for him for 3 to 5 seconds, and now they're getting blamed for sacks that he's inflicted on himself? He's going to walk in the huddle and they're going to say, hey, son, not here.
But having offensive linemen, having those linemen had to deal with that with Elway, Steve Young, Randall Cunningham.
Now, okay, in some facet, yes. Now, let's take Elway. I mean, to even put those guys in the same category, it's not even fair. Let's just talk about, okay, first of all, at the end of the day, Elway played within structure. Russell Wilson plays within structure. His ability to run is secondary to his skill set. He'll go through his progression. Yes, he uses his legs to extend or make. Once he's exhausted, his options to throw. That is the one thing that people have forgot when they compare Russell Wilson. The only comparison, same height. After that, they're nothing alike. Now Johnny Manziel, his primary is to run. He jumps out of structure immediately. The second that he even sees an alley or has any type of protected pressure, and protected pressure is where, say, an offensive lineman is blocking somebody, he's secured, but it's around him, he can't wait to go. He breaks down when it doesn't need to be broken down, and you never see anything where he plays within a solid structure. I mean, how many plays? Gosh, you don't care. Alabama, Ole Miss, Missouri, LSU, where they pressure him. And instead of throwing the ball and stinging a defense for what they've just done, and it's very elementary stuff, too. It isn't like, they disguise that very well. They almost put up a red flag and say, here, I'm coming. They come, and he won't throw the ball. So he doesn't play within those type of things you have to be able to see to translate to the National Football League. Doesn't do that. Doesn't throw with great anticipation. Doesn't have a big arm. I mean, it really reminded me of a pop gun arm, especially when he pushes outside the numbers. The velocity looks like he's throwing a go route. Well, and he'll miss a lot of routes. He's late a ton of times. Those kind of things don't transition to the National Football League. Aside from his ability to run, which becomes a negative in the NFL, quite honestly, there is not one thing that I would give him a high grade on. Scale from 1 to 10. Most of those things: accuracy, decision making, anticipation, pocket presence, feel, awareness, structure. The highest grade probably gives a 2 in all of those. Well, you can't make him a top 10 pick, let alone the first player taken, and build your franchise around that.
Merril Hoge in the Herd in studio. Is it a case where you mentioned the first 3 rounds? If you could, and he's not going to be there, but if you could draft him in the 4th or 5th round, might he be a great pick? Because we possibly could teach him to be a little bit more of a structured quarterback, and then all of a sudden, this is one of the best draft picks we've ever made because of where we took him.
Well, now there's 2 things there. I mean, if you take him in a later round, yes, it's much better for you as a team if you do that, because you do have a project on your hands. Now, the NFL isn't about projects, okay? You don't have a lot of time for these type of projects. But however, you just said, can you teach him it? You can teach him everything. And we ask that question all the time, and it is actually the one of 2 questions you should be asked. Can it be taught and learned, then applied? And we don't ever ask, can it be learned and applied? You're telling me Texas A&M said, you know what, we're not going to teach you how to throw off hot. We're going to just let you run around. Texas A&M never taught him things. That's where I got the saying. Coach has all the power but no control. When a player steps inside the white lines, he does what he wants to do.
Unfortunately, we're up against it. I wanted to get to Michael Vick. We'll do it another time. But really good stuff. I appreciate the
My pleasure.
even though we disagree. And thanks, Merril.
It's okay to disagree. It's not perfect science, brother.
That's right. We're signing off of ESPNU. We'll be on ESPN3. We'll talk about Aaron Kraft. Is he an NBA player? That's next. Ian O'Connor in for Colin on The Herd.